Coming up, North Korea's provocations continue as overnight it launched a short-range ballistic missile toward the EC and flew warplanes near South Korea's border. Seoul's military says it scrambled its own F-35 fighter jets in response. The South Korean government announces a fresh set of sanctions on 15 individuals and 16 institutions in response to North Korea's recent nuclear weapons activities and its continued provocations. Plus, despite attempts to cut inflation, the U.S. Consumer Price Index jumped 8.2% in September. This is more than expected, and President Biden stresses that fighting inflation is his utmost priority. Good morning. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. North Korea fired one short-range ballistic missile toward the EC in the early hours of Friday morning. The launch also came just after the regime's warplanes had been seen flying close to the South Korean border. For more, we have Shin Ha-young on the line for us. Ha-young, do fill us in.
Doyeon, before North Korea's short-range ballistic missile, or SRBM, launched towards the EC on Friday, South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff reported that North Korean warplanes were spotted flying close to the shared border between the two countries. The JCS said around 10 of the North military aircraft flew in formation from 10:30 p.m. local time on Thursday for about 2 hours. In response, South Korea dispatched F-35 fighter jets and other warplanes. Then there was the SRBM launch. South Korea detected the launch from the Sunan area of Pyongyang at 1:49 a.m. The missile traveled about 700 kilometers, reaching a height of 50 kilometers at a speed of Mach 6. North Korea has also conducted artillery firing drills in the direction of the West Sea at 1:20 a.m. and towards the East Sea at 2:57 a.m. This comes just 2 days after the regime said it launched 2 long-range cruise missiles overseen by leader Kim Jong-un on Wednesday. And regarding the latest launch, further details are still being analyzed, and the South Korean army is working closely with the U.S. in order to be fully prepared for more provocations. And also, South Korea's National Security Council convened an emergency meeting on the matter.
Now, as Seoul's military is working closely with the U.S. regarding this matter, were there any responses or reactions from the U.S.? If so, are there any details?
Well, Doyeon, the U.S. was quick to reaffirm its commitments to the defense of South Korea and Japan. Speaking to Yonhap News Agency, the State Department condemned the North missile launch, calling it a violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. It added that the U.S. continues to seek serious and sustained dialogue with the North, but the regime has so far been rejecting the talks. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command also said in a statement that the launch didn't pose an immediate threat to U.S. or to its allies. That's all I have for now, but I'll bring more updates in our latest newscast. Back to you, Doyeon.
Thank you for the update. That was our Shin Ha-young on the latest North Korea's provocation. Now, in response to the North's latest string of provocations, including missile launches and simulator use of tactical nukes, South Korea has slapped fresh sanctions on North Korean individuals and institutions for the first time in 5 years. Seoul's foreign ministry announced earlier this morning that the new sanctions will apply to 15 North Koreans for their roles in procuring funds and equipment for the regime's weapons of mass destruction and missile development. 16 North Korean institutions reportedly engaged in the same activities and were involved in evading UN Security Council sanctions against the North. That means prior permission from the Financial Services Commission and the Chief of Bank of Korea will be required to conduct foreign exchange or financial transactions with those who were sanctioned. Seoul has levied 5 rounds of independent sanctions on Pyongyang since 2015. Prices consumers pay for a wide variety of goods and services in the U.S. jumped more than expected in September, despite the Federal Reserve's efforts to tackle inflation by introducing aggressive interest rate hikes. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
America's Consumer Price Index rose 8.2% year-on-year in September, rising faster than economists had expected. It also marks a very small slowdown from the pace set in August. The so-called Core Consumer Price Index, which excludes food and energy, jumped 6.6% from a year ago in September. This is the highest level since 1982, according to data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on Thursday. It was also a hefty increase from the 6.3% recorded the month before. Shelter prices, which include mortgage payments, property taxes and other fees, led the way, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the average household spending. Transport services also saw a 1.9% jump last month, which was the largest one-month increase across core CPI components. Medical services followed with a 1% jump. The latest figures are set to turn the Fed's race to cool inflation into a marathon. Following the news, US President Joe Biden stressed that his utmost priority is fighting the war against inflation. Despite Thursday's CPI data, Biden claimed that inflation over the past 3 months had averaged at 2%, which he added was a drop from 11% in the previous quarter. Biden then added that economic plans introduced by his administration put the US in a stronger position than any major economy to take on this global challenge. 오수영, Arirang News.
Seoul's finance chief agreed with the central bank's decision on interest rates with a hike of 50 basis points in response to inflation and the strong U.S. dollar. The policy rate is now at 3% for the first time in about a decade. Chu Kyung-ho, who's on a trip to Washington for a G20 meeting, told reporters that the hike was necessary because taming inflation is the country's #1 task right now. The minister added the government's view is no different from that of the Bank of Korea. He also pointed out if rates were not raised to deal with the won's depreciation, the instability in the foreign exchange market would continue. The first edition of the International Union for Conservation of Nature Leaders Forum begins. Participants from around the world come together to discuss and devise necessary solutions. Among the key topics, a new system to track contributions towards a greener global economy. Our Lee takes us there.
A nature-positive society where nature is restored and regenerated. That's what the global community has been aiming for. And South Korea's southernmost island of Jeju is hosting the first edition of the International Union for Conservation of Nature Leaders Forum. Organized by the IUCN and South Korea's Ministry of Environment, the 3-day event kicked off on Thursday under the theme of building nature-positive economies and society. It serves as a platform for discussions on eco-friendly policies in the agriculture and finance sectors. In the opening ceremony, South Korea's Minister of Environment highlighted the importance of including biodiversity in business decisions and urged leaders to step up for sustainability amid global uncertainties. To do this, the president of IUCN proposed a nature-positive approach.
The IUCN is proposing a nature-positive approach. This approach will enable the emerging of a more precise global picture of the true extent of nature loss, the efforts needed to overcome it, and to be able to track the collective contributions of the private sector, of civil societies, and of governments globally, and to be able to also align those efforts.
According to IUCN, this system will allow the assessment and tracking of nature-positive contributions from both the public and private sectors. The aim is to provide potential investors with the data they need.
The way it is measured, it depends on the different offers. There will be, I imagine, different tools available. One of them, the one that IUCN proposes. The tools that are the more scientifically rooted, but at the same time easy to use, that deliver clear results, will be the one that will, in the long run, take over.
Leaders and changemakers from a variety of sectors will discuss innovative solutions to biodiversity loss and climate change at the IUCN Leaders Forum 2022 in an effort to foster a more nature-positive community. Lee, Arirang News, Jeju.
Seoul Fashion Week is back in full swing for the first time in 3 years. Dongdaemun Design Plaza is showcasing the upcoming spring and summer collection. Kim Hyun-sung provides a glimpse of the coming hot trends.
Fashion runways are back in Seoul with all the glitz and glamour. Crowds flock to Dongdaemun Design Plaza to witness the return of Seoul Fashion Week. The city's biggest fashion spectacle kicked off on Tuesday, with no more COVID social distancing rules to worry about for the first time in 3 years. Do you live in Seoul?
No, I'm actually from Atlanta, and I came here just for this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you crossed borders all the way for Seoul Fashion Week?
I sure did, yeah. I love the environment, and I really love fashion, and I like how experimental that they get here.
I feel like in Korea, it's really genderless and unisex in general, which I really like.
With the rise of K-content and Korean culture, K-fashion is also rising in popularity globally. This year, 120 buyers have come from 24 countries.
And over the next 5 days, 33 K-fashion brands are going to present their best line of work for next year's spring and summer collection. Greediest is one of Seoul's rising fashion brands. The name fuses the words greedy and fabulous, and fitting to its name, the designer experiments with loud colors and bold prints. Greediest's designs have also been around the globe, from New York to Guangzhou.
K-fashion is confidence. Once you wear Greediest, you will become confident like me. And because Greediest has a sure-footed identity, the clothes become a language.
The designer has also worked with cutting-edge artificial intelligence, blurred lines between genders, and mixed retro and futuristic into one fit for her unique, fearless designs. Holy No. 7 is another brand that people were talking about on the first day of Fashion Week. The designers get their inspiration from the Bible.
The theme of these designs is love, and verses from the Bible are blended into the clothes. Fashion can influence even young kids, so we wanted our designs to be hip but also kind.
Their designs also started to grab the attention of international buyers.
The entry barriers to the fashion scene in the US and Paris used to be really high. But now they'll reach out to us first through Instagram and ask us about setting up a showroom. A lot of people are interested in K-fashion.
These two brands give a brief look into the creativity of Seoul fashion. And with Korean fashion growing its presence, designs born here will soon be strutting down the global runway. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
As we have reported multiple times, South Korea has made an official bid to host the World Expo 2030 in the nation's second largest city, Busan. And this weekend, in an effort to boost the bid, South Korea's very own BTS will hold a free concert in the southeastern port city in front of an audience that's expected to reach 100,000. To discuss BTS and the group's upcoming show, we have Stefan Lee from the author of K-Pop Confidential and K-Pop Revolution with us today, joining from LA. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me again.
Right, now 100,000 are expected to come to this concert, and the tickets were free. Even for superstars like BTS, this must mean a lot. How do you interpret this as someone in the entertainment industry?
Well, that is pretty unusual, especially by American standards where I am. And I was just at a Lady Gaga concert here in Los Angeles with 50,000 people, and those tickets were absolutely not free. But BTS has had a history of, doing things not just to make money, but to show the world and also their fans how appreciative they are of their continued support.
Right, and this show will also be streamed live. How strong of a message will this concert be, and to the rest of the world, that Busan is a competitive choice for the World Expo in 2030?
Well, BTS is obviously the perfect choice of artists to feature in this kind of world stage because their appeal is so massive and reaches all kinds of people. So it really shows that Korea and also Busan are cultural centers that get recognition from all over the world. And I think BTS has the power to influence entire nations and governments more than any other artist in the world. So I think this will really show just what a nexus of culture that that Korea has. And it also makes sense that it's in the second largest city in Korea because Seoul is already all over the map. And I think hosting a major global event like the Olympics or the World Cup or the World Expo will really put a different city on the map and show that there are various places throughout the country, even though it might be small in land size, there's a lot of diversity in the culture of the country.
Right. Now, all this hype is not to say that there aren't any concerns. Some are worried about the infrastructure and possible safety issues for this concert. Do you think there is enough preparation time for a concert of this size? As someone who's seen many concerts, especially like Lady Gaga's, being prepared.
Yeah. Yes. So BTS, they will never do anything like this lightly or without a lot of people working to make it as dazzling and safe of an event as possible. And especially if this is a bid for South Korea's hosting capabilities, there will be a lot of support from both corporations. There are many big global corporations that are helping to sponsor this event to make it successful. So I think that, Korea and the company behind BTS will pull out all the stops to make this a success. Obviously, when you have a lot of people in one space, there are things you can't really control for, whether it's attendees' behavior or attendees who maybe already had a pre-existing medical condition that comes to the fore during the concert. But aside from things that no one can control, I think this will be a really state-of-the-art event and planned with the best capabilities that Korea has to offer.
Right. I mean, hopefully everything works out perfectly and that people will have a good time. Well, thank you again for joining us this afternoon for you, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Now, for a look at the news from around the world, we turn to our Matthew Ashley standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning, Doyon.
Let's start in the U.S., where the January 6th committee has issued a subpoena for former U.S. President Donald Trump.
Well, that's right. The House Select Committee made the decision on Thursday during what's expected to be its final session before the November midterm elections. Now, the hearing saw new evidence and testimony introduced allegedly showing Trump's role in the January 6, 2021 Capitol Hill riot. Now, the call for a subpoena followed a unanimous vote by all committee members. This will legally summon Trump to bring documents and testify under oath regarding his involvement in the event. The subpoena will be issued in the coming days and will include a deadline by when the former president must comply by. Failure to follow the summons could see Trump face criminal charges and even prison time. Now, a key step toward ending months of political deadlock, Iraq has elected a new president. Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid was made president on Thursday following a parliamentary vote. He received 162 out of 269 votes in what was the fourth attempt this year for Iraq to choose a new president. The new president has since nominated Shia politician Mohammed Shia al-Sudani as prime minister. The PM-designate now has 1 month to form a new government. Iraq has seen a year of political unrest following the October 2021 elections. At the time, prominent Shia Muslim cleric Muqtada al-Sadr and his party won the most seats in parliament, but failed to form a government. Now, in a bid to reduce its reliance on Russian energy, Germany has received gas supplies from France for the very first time. Gas began arriving in Germany through a pipeline on Thursday, following an energy deal inked between the countries last month. Described as a move in European solidarity, the French gas supplies will cover 2% of Germany's daily needs. Enough gas will be initially supplied to generate 31 gigawatt-hours of energy per day, but the pipeline can provide up to 100 gigawatt-hours. Russian gas supplies previously made up 55% of German energy supplies, but this has been reduced to 35%. Germany is also ramping up energy generation from coal, whilst extending the lifespan of power stations. France is less affected by Russian energy supply woes, as its needs are met by LNG and gas from Norway. And finally, in a world first, a robot has testified in British Parliament. Called Ada, the robot appeared on Tuesday in front of a House of Lords committee looking into the future of creative industries. Described as, quote, the world's first ultra-realistic AI humanoid robot artist, Ada answered questions about how new technologies will impact the sector. Named after Ada Lovelace, a 19th century computer pioneer, the humanoid robot has already established a portfolio of artwork, including a piece of the late Queen Elizabeth. Ada was completed in 2019 and can draw portraits of people using its bionic arm and cameras in its eyes.
Good morning. We had some picture-perfect autumn weather yesterday afternoon. Not too hot, not too cold, just perfect to spend some time outside. And it looks to be a repeat of yesterday's weather with more cloud coverage. But big gaps between lows and highs are creating thick fog this morning. Well, it feels like autumn passed by quicker with the unexpected weather conditions we have seen this season. But the peak autumn season is yet to come as the leaves are heading towards prime peak fall colors. Mountainous regions in the northeast are already experiencing the early stage of autumn colors, and those of us in the capital will also notice changes in leaves from next week. Afternoon highs will be similar to yesterday's. Seoul and Daejeon will be topping out at 22 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju, Busan at 23 degrees this afternoon. Nice autumn weather is in the forecast this week, and then cold air surges into the country early next week, dragging down the lows to just 4 degrees Celsius here in the capital. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week on Monday for the Monday's edition at the same time. Please stay with us for more updates throughout the day. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.